Hello and welcome to Changemakers. In this show, we have interesting conversations with people who are making a change, making a difference, making an impact. Our guest today is Soren Gordhamer, author of the book Wisdom 2.0 and founder of the Wisdom 2.0 conference. Soren, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Gopi.
Delighted to see you, and welcome back to the Bay Area.
Thanks.
Now, you coined the term Wisdom 2.0, and clearly it's not a piece of software or the latest social networking game. What is Wisdom 2.0?
Great question. Wisdom 2.0 originally actually was coined by my publisher when I was writing a book trying to find the intersection between wisdom and technology. And the idea for the book came when I had often practiced yoga and meditation as a young child. My parents were often passing me down yoga books and giving me tapes on meditation. And so I grew up with that as kind of a foundation. And then once all these social networks came and cell phones came, I noticed myself getting more and more immersed in the external technologies and more out of touch with my own heart and body and mind, such that I was living what I was calling disconnectedly connected. You know, I was connected through my cell phone, but wasn't connected to myself as I was connected to my cell phone. So I began to wonder if I'm struggling with this. Maybe, thousands of other people are also kind of struggling with this too and are trying to find this balance where they're saying yes to all these great technologies, but also yes to the inner technologies of compassion and wisdom. So what does it mean to merge and to live a modern life with and applying ancient wisdom to our modern life? So that to me is really kind of the path of Wisdom 2.0. It's for people who want to say yes to all these awesome technologies, but then also yes to this inner technology and purpose and meaning and mindfulness.
It's funny when you said that, and I was reminded of this phrase that I've been using with friends where I often tell them I'm connected to the internet, but I'm not connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So your premise is that there is a need to connect these ancient wisdom traditions to the technologies of our age.
I think at the end of the day, if we look at our lives, when we're all lying on our deathbed and we're saying goodbye to our bank account, and we're saying goodbye to our name, we're saying goodbye to our vocation, all the identities that kind of we held and all the possessions, what's really going to matter, in that moment? And it's probably not how many friends we had on Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter. It's probably not how many fancy gadgets we had. It's probably going to be, to what extent did I actually live fully? To what extent did I bring my full heart and body and mind? And I think this is the same question that people asked in the Buddha's time that they're also asking in this time. What does it mean to actually live fully within the context of my life? So I feel like that question is actually up for more and more people, or feel like, yes, it's great to have the latest iPhone. I'm going to buy the latest iPhone or whatever that gadget is. But more importantly, am I actually living with vision and with purpose and fully showing up?
So it sounds like your quest is to see if you can integrate these two paths or modalities, as I would call it.
We have to, I think, yeah.
Well, I'm going to challenge you by asking two questions. A, is it necessary? And even if it's necessary, is it even possible?
I think for our society to kind of continue, that the quality of attention that we give to one another has to be paramount. And that if we have children being raised today and their parents are giving them almost no attention, but they're giving their phone and their technology all the attention, that it's just not going to really develop and nurture and grow the healthy individuals that we need to have compassion and to have wisdom, which is really the fabric of any culture. A culture cannot exist without compassion, without wisdom, and without mindfulness, no matter how many kind of great gadgets it has. So I feel like there is this movement where more people are realizing, I want to have a blend of both. I want to have the latest gadgets, and I want to be connected to this purpose, such that when I'm talking to my friend, I'm really there for my friend. If I'm talking to my child, I'm really there for my child. Thich Nhat Hanh has that line, he says, the greatest gift we can give one another is our presence. And I think more people are aligning with that and saying, what does that mean in my life? And what does that mean in my relationship to all the different gadgets that I use?
So let me take a minute to talk about the book that you wrote. So Wisdom 2.0 is the name of the book, right? And it took many years of your practice and your life work and the different things you'd done before you sat down and said, let me synthesize this and put this into the book, which is, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 years old. And what is, if you were to summarize in a couple of minutes, what is the whole premise of the book or the main takeaway?
The book is my suggestions and teachings on how do we apply ancient wisdom within modern life. So what does that look like? So some examples would be when your cell phone rings, rather than immediately answering the phone and it's like, who's there? This kind of habitual nervous energy. What might it mean to take a breath, to listen to that phone ring, almost like it was a bell at a monastery. Take it in, listen to the second bell, take it in. So all of a sudden you're answering the phone, but you're not answering it from, right? This like habitual nervous energy. You're actually answering it with a level of consciousness. And the quality of that conversation is going to be significantly different than if you just answered it out of nervousness. So it tries to kind of bring in daily practices and tools to kind of help remind us of that consciousness and how can we kind of come back to that during the day.
Yeah, interesting.
And I fail at it often, but again, it's the practice of moving in that direction.
And I'd read about one of the teachers, I think Sharon Goldberg.
Sharon Salzberg?
Sharon Salzberg, I'm sorry, who talks of she lets her phone ring 3 times before she picks it up. And
I think so, yeah. And Thich Nhat Hanh also suggests that, like to really use the bell as a mindfulness coming back. So it's not the phone is bad, or the phone shouldn't ring, or we get like mad at the phone for ringing. But it's like, how can we use that too, as a way to enhance the practice.
So are people buying it? I don't mean the book, but the concepts that you talked about.
I'm not trying to sell it. How this all emerged was I was feeling this inside me.
Yeah.
And I talked to some friends like you and others and said, this is where my interests are. Do you think other people might also share this same interest? So that's when we did the conference, which last year sold out, and this year looks like it's also going to sell out. So it seems to be there's a growing interest, not because I'm trying to sell it, but it just feels like more and more people are realizing, if I'm just constantly wired, I'm actually not very effective. I can't get to sleep at night. I'm not very patient with my friends and family. And I want to find that balance. I think more people are like looking for that balance.
Interesting. So this is a good segue into the conference. So you took the book and went on to create a conference called Wisdom 2.0. And you wanted to bring together the people who either read the book or about whom you've written about. And what was the intent behind that conference? A very odd kind of conference compared to everything else that is out there. And
people say, is it a tech conference or is it a wisdom conference? I'm like, yes, yes. And so here's my kind of idea, is that in order to really explore what does it mean to live a consciously connected life in our day and age, harnessing the power of technology, external and internal, that we need both these communities to come together. The wisdom teachers who've been studying and really diving into the internal technologies, they have a piece. But so do all the people who are creating these technologies, and Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook and YouTube and all these things that are connecting us. That has a place too. So what does it mean to bring both of these together and that they both have a piece? So I knew a bunch of wisdom teachers who I thought would come, but I was like, who the hell from the tech world? How do I even find someone from Twitter or Google? It's like it's not on their page that they're interested in meditation or inner practice. So it took some time going around and snooping and asking people and trying to find.
Peering into closets.
yeah, really, it was. It was like this mystery game, right? I knew they were there somewhere, but like, how do you bring them out? And what I found is that the tech community is more open-minded than any other community I feel like I've ever been in touch with. They're generally very open to talking about anything. And so slowly people start to emerge from Google and Twitter and Facebook, and people who are like, yeah, you know what, I love technology, but there's also something deeper in me about living fully and living purposefully. And we're really interested in this conversation. So now, like at next year's conference, we have a whole range of people from all the different tech companies, which is really exciting to see.
That's interesting. So do you think you could have created a similar conference in Wall Street with Zen masters and investment bankers sitting next to each other, or law firms and wisdom teachers?
I think there's a quality of transparency that's important within the tech community that I feel like doesn't always exist in other communities, where there's a little more kind of protectiveness or being hidden.
Yeah.
And it feels like within the tech community, it's more like, whatever I have, I want to share. I want to be transparent about it. So I do feel like the tech community is actually kind of ripe for really honest, engaging, fruitful conversation, because they have that orientation towards transparency.
Interesting. So when I watch some of the conference proceedings, when I've been at each of the conferences, so this juxtaposition of the founders of Silicon Valley tech companies sitting next to Zen masters and meditation teachers and yoga teachers seems somehow incongruous. And was there like a stony silence because they had nothing to say each other? Maybe they welcomed it, or
Well, what excites
good
me
dialogue?
when I'm trying to put together the kind of the structure, what excites me is when you actually have people from two different worlds and you think, what in the heck do they have in common?
Right.
But there is something that they have in common.
And what is
that? What that thread is
Yeah.
that they want to live a meaningful and purposeful life themselves, and they want to support that in the world. Now, they might have different orientations about how they see themselves doing that, but I think at the end of the day, everyone desires pretty much the same thing. We desire to be loved. We desire to have a positive impact. We desire to leave the world a little better than how we came. So whether you're interested in meditation or technology, can we forget like the identities that we hold? Well, I'm a meditation teacher. Well, I'm the CEO of this company. It's like, okay, that exists on one level, but underneath that, you're human. And there's these natural human desires to be happy and to create happiness for others. And so let's get to that. And so I feel like the conference really tries to bring forth those elements rather than trying to get too caught in their different roles.
Yeah, and the interesting thing I found, which you told me once that surprised you in a delightful way, was that every single conference is sold out from the beginning.
The first one actually didn't,
First
but the
one
second one did.
Second and third.
Yeah.
So clearly there's a demand for this kind of content.
But why? Yeah, it's interesting. What is it about
What
that?
is the draw?
Yeah.
Was my next question. Why do you think people in the tech industry are drawn to come and attend a conference?
So I've asked myself that same question. Here's the best understanding I can have. I feel like there's a lot of people who come like from Intel and Apple and Motorola, and they don't quite feel they can be themselves at work. You know, they're at work and they're in these meetings and they're doing their jobs, but they feel like this isn't really all of me. Like, do I care what our quarterly earnings are? A little bit, but I'm also a spiritual person, and how does that show up? And they don't right feel that, and nothing against those companies, but just in the majority of tech companies, I think people kind of feel this tension where can I really be myself and honor the spiritual part of me? And so I feel like the conference is like a place where they go, oh, I can actually meet other people and show up fully as myself and meet other people who also want to show up fully as themselves. So I feel like actually that's the draw, more than the presenters and the talks. It's actually feeling that sense of community and feeling like, wow, I can be transparent about what my true desires are and what my true intentions are.
But that almost seems like an escapist approach to me, saying that part of my life doesn't work in where I work, and therefore I need an escape valve for that. But what I want to challenge you, Soren, is do you think it is possible to actually integrate that in the workplace itself?
Absolutely, absolutely. But it takes enough, I think one person can do it as best they can.
Yeah.
If the structures support that, then I think it can really move. And I think actually if there's a next wave of work, I think this is it. I think it's less about people getting out of work and going to some program where they feel connected, whether it's a yoga class or whatever, and the next generation of spiritual transformation, if you will, or a movement is actually transforming work and making work much more like a learning laboratory or an ashram or a center of that kind.
Or a place where you can do your inner and outer work together and in harmony.
Yeah, and that shows actually in the product. I was just driving down Palo Alto University Ave today, and there was all these people in front of the Apple store taking pictures and writing notes. And it's like, what is it about Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs passed away a few days ago. And what is it about Steve Jobs that seems to have touched so many people?
Sure.
And some of it was, he's the CEO of, I think, the largest company, one of the largest companies in the world now.
The market cap tech company.
Yeah, and so there's certain kind of mystique that he has. But I also feel like the spirit and the consciousness and the intention with which he created his products, people can feel in those products.
Yeah.
They can feel the amount of intention and focus that he put in those products. So they feel a connection to him, even though they never met him.
Yeah.
And I think in the same way with work, if we don't just look at, oh, I spent 8 hours looking at a screen today, I must have worked.
Yeah.
But no, what's the quality of attention with which you engage that work? Because that quality of attention is going to be felt by not only your coworkers and your colleagues, but in the products that you create.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that shift is just beginning to happen in our culture.
Yeah. And since you brought up Steve Jobs, and thank you for doing so, such an iconic figure of our times and quite moving and touching that he passed away a couple of days ago. Where do you think that quality of attention that he put, that obsessiveness about product quality and user interface, where did that come from? Does it have anything to do with the kind of
Yeah, I don't know much
practices
about
that
his
you
life. I know he had an interest in Buddhism at some point and traveled to India and Asia, and is part of his kind of quest and understanding.
Yeah.
He was a very private individual, so I think he could have had certain interests that just none of us, or maybe very few people, actually know. And I do think there can be kind of an overly obsessive personality, you know, who's like so focused and so overbearing that it's actually not healthy. But I do feel like there's this way in which the passion that somebody has is just contagious, right? If someone's really living with passion and vision, you can get your coworkers and your colleagues and people to work on a vision that they would never work on without that person stepping up and being a leader.
Yeah.
So I think he's really kind of symbolized that for a lot of people, like someone who really had a vision, even when people couldn't see, oh, what? Like, we don't need a new phone. Our phones are fine. And it's like this kind of visionary that can see beyond what people can see.
Yeah, or who wants to carry 5,000 or 10,000 songs in your pocket?
Yeah.
Where is there a need for that?
Yeah,
Exactly.
but they're not so conditioned by the norm,
Yeah.
right? They're actually in this kind of much more creative, expansive space. And I think that's a space we all can access, you know, in each of our ways every day at work. I don't think it just exists in certain, you know, certain characters.
So how, or what does one of our viewers do with their life to live this utopian Wisdom 2.0 life?
Well, just to be clear, I don't live it all the time.
Okay.
You know, it's an ongoing practice,
you.
and there's moments my phone rings and I'm like, and then I realize, what? Like, hold it, where? I don't even know where my mind was,
And
right?
I'm sure that
Or
candor and vulnerability is part of the practice as well for you.
yeah, and like checking my phone like 10 times more than I actually need to.
Yeah.
So, but I think the kind of important piece is to begin to pay attention to our internal state, right? What is the state of mind? We're walking into a meeting. What's the state of mind we're walking in with? We're going to work. What's the state of mind we're showing up to work with? And if we pay attention to that, we realize, wow, it might be nice when I get to work to spend 2 minutes or 1 minute sitting in my car, focusing on my breath, to enhance that quality of mind with which I'm walking into work. And maybe when my boss says something to me, I'll just be that millisecond more patient or millisecond clearer. Or just before sending out that email where I'm upset, and it's going to create, if I send it, it's actually going to create like tons of conflict and problems. I'll notice my body, and I'll be like, what state of mind is actually present at this moment? And I'll realize, you know what, this isn't the best time to send that email or to talk to my boss. So I feel like making awareness of what our internal state is, to me, is pretty fundamental. And there's all kinds of practices that help that, and whatever practice you find, go for, whether it's singing or running or, you know, I think there's so many different ways that we can enhance our state. But coming back to an awareness of the state, I think is, that's actually, I see as my work.
Yeah. So how does a person do it? Like, what are these practices that increase your awareness of your inner state?
I think just the awareness of it. So people say like, well, I'm nervous about going into this meeting. I shouldn't be nervous. Like, well, what if you just were aware that you were nervous? Just allowed that to be. Just that allowing it to be actually shifts the quality of your nervousness. You're not actually not nervous anymore. Or the nervousness is there, but there's a lot more space around it. So sometimes people use the example of if you have some red dye and you pour it into a cup of water, that water is going to turn red. If you have that same dye and you pour it into the ocean, what's going to happen to the ocean? Almost no visible impact. Why? Because of the amount of space that there is in the ocean, of course. And so in the same way, our minds can sometimes be very small, and frustration comes, and it colors all our perceptions and everything we see. But if we're actually more conscious and accepting, it comes, we see it, frustration. Oh, okay. There's so much space for it that it moves through much more quickly, and it doesn't have the lasting implications, and we can actually act not from it, but we can act in ways that is aware of it, and it's a completely different way of acting.
Okay. In that case, I want to bring it back to what we talked of, this integration between technology and these wisdom practices. So everything you said, makes a lot of sense, but these are principles and tenets that various teachers and masters have been saying, shouting hoarsely for 2,000 years. None of us listen to it, though. That is the problem. But along with it now comes this era of so much technology surrounding us, clamoring for attention. And are you saying all of these technologies further disconnect us from that awareness, or they can be used as aids and support that awareness?
I think they can be aids and support this awareness.
Okay.
Now,
Tell me more.
can somebody look at a screen for 14 hours a day and be completely in conscious space? I have my doubts about that. So I do think there's some quality of moderation.
Yeah.
But the beauty now is that the information channels are wide open as they never have been. When I was growing up, there were 4 major networks. Whatever people received was controlled basically by 4 large corporations who had very specific interests about what people should hear and shouldn't hear.
Yeah.
And so it was like the only way to get people's attention was, ABC or CBS nightly news. That was it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now the people actually have the voice, right? We can share information together through these networks and through our phones in unimaginable ways even 5-10 years ago. So this way in which the world is becoming more transparent and more open is, I think, a huge opportunity that we have. Now then the question is, how do we engage consciously through that, and how do we use those tools that in a way that actually support more wisdom and mindfulness?
Sure.
So I actually think we should embrace these,
Yes.
right? And I think there's this huge potential to now get teachings out and to get information out that has to be like gone through that editor or that corporate interest before that always kind of like decided what was good and what was bad. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity.
But that also has created this problem, at least when I had used talk of an era when there were 3 TV networks, that's all you had to choose from. But now you show up in front of your internet and try to look at YouTube or something, and every minute about 48 hours of videos are being uploaded. It is overwhelming. And if at all anything, it seems to just fragment my attention. And so
I think,
how do you turn the spigot off, or how do you respond to that?
Yeah. So here's again where it goes back to state. So if I'm at my computer and I notice my state is actually fuzzy and hazy, it's actually going to be more productive for me. And it's hard to get the mind to understand this, but it's actually going to be more productive for me to spend 10 minutes going for a walk, or doing some breathing practices, or centering, or some stretching, and then going back to work for 50 minutes. I'm actually going to be much more productive and much more effective than if I just continued through that state. So I think there's this way in which we need to be more and more vigilant. I mean, it's almost like being in a Zen monastery, right? Where the tendency is so strong that we have to be extremely vigilant and conscious and know, when am I actually, is my state being diminished such that I'm actually not fully present? And then what can I actually do to make that a more enriching, vital experience?
And it all seems to go back to that basic concept you brought about being aware and increasing your awareness of what is going on, of your state. Now, one concept that really caught my attention in the book is you seem to refer to this as a technology also, even though most of us don't think of it that way. So our brain, our mind, our breath, our consciousness, you call it one of the most sophisticated technologies that we have. And clearly that's what many of the masters have spent time on studying. So how do you optimize this technology?
Well, I think the first practice is to give attention to it and to actually acknowledge it. So for a lot of people, their body exists from, this is their body, right? Like this is how they see the world. Like sensations, their legs, their whole being. This just isn't in the realm of our awareness, right?
True,
We're taught that who you are is your brain and you just think, and that's all you are, is this moving head.
Interesting. I've always wondered, why do you need an elbow?
Yeah, right? Like we're kind of disembodied in a strange way. So I think one of the practices is like, can we bring awareness back to the full body? And can we find practices that actually help us feel more alive? Joseph Campbell has this great quote that says, I don't think what we're looking for is meaning. What we're looking for is the experience of being truly alive. I think that's true for so many people. And the kind of thinking faculty is just one faculty. Intuition and so many of these other qualities, I think, come from a more full awareness of our body. So what I would encourage people to do is find some time each day where they're tuning into this technology. It might be 1 minute in the morning, 2 minutes in the morning. It might be various kinds of walks or yoga, but some time and attention to this technology. And then begin to see, how does that impact your day? So don't listen to me and say, I should do 10 minutes of yoga a day because that guy in that show said so. Try it for a week, do 10 minutes, and then try it without that, and then see for yourself. But I particularly find something at the very beginning of the day that's internal, and then something at the very end of the day that's internal really, really helps the day, because then you're starting with a certain quality of attention and you're going to bed with a certain quality of attention. I was reading a statistic recently, it's like almost half the people in the US have problems sleeping during the week.
Wow, half the people.
Yeah, it's like they're not able to sleep. And I think so much of it is that they're not giving attention to this internal body, right? And so the body is kind of wired and on the go in a way that's actually not that healthy for them.
And that is so tragic, because even before you get to meditation or exercise or food or anything, what this technology needs first and foremost is quality of good sleep.
Yeah.
And just you're saying the quality of the life itself for 50% affects that most fundamental need for this technology.
And so but if you think about it, if you're going on, and then you get to 10:30, 11 at night, and then you say, okay, body, stop and relax. And your body has this momentum, right, that just, it can't stop and relax. So what if we made a movement in the culture, I'll announce it now, where we spend that last hour before bed. The rest of the day we can be totally working and totally immersed. But what if we all spend that last hour before bed in some kind of contemplative space?
Yeah.
Whatever that is, read a book, sit, lie down, do yoga, whatever that is for you. That last hour is the contemplative time. And then notice what the quality of your sleep is like, how you enter sleep from that space. The other thing I encourage people to do in the book is to turn off the lights in your house the last hour and just light candles. So what you're doing is you're telling your nervous system, you're telling the cells in your body, we're making a transition now. It's gone is the day, and we're transitioning to the night. And that then, such that when you go to bed, that has actually helped make you make a transition. Nice. And then same with the first thing in the morning. The first thing in the morning, what do? Do we pick up our cell phone real quick and check our messages, or can we actually sit for just a moment before we do that?
Good. So it sounds like, on top of it, most of it seems to be find the kind of rituals that anchor you, find the kind of rituals that you can internalize, and the rituals that allow find the connection between, from the internet to what I call the internet.
And community can also be helpful. If you can find one friend, I have 2 friends, and they want to meditate every morning. So what they do is, after they meditate every morning, they text the person, just a D, done. And then the other person texts them, D, done. So they find these ways to use technology to actually support what they want to do.
Yeah, so I know we come to the bottom of the show, so I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Gopal.
And really interesting conversation. Thank you, Soren.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it was good.
Good.
Wrap it up, and we just kind of been bantering.